Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
In here with Farajii, last name Muhammad. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Donnie. How you doing?
Man, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. So we get to turn the tables on you today, Farajii.
Okay. Usually, just a little bit.
Yeah, usually you out there posing the questions, running the board. What time is your show on? WEAA?
5 p.m. to 7 p.m. The one and only for the culture.
And you've been holding it down. Farajii, I was thinking last night, you like a young old man. How long you been on
radio? Technically, with my own show, be 16 years this year. 16 years. But prior to that, we were doing all types of stuff that I was doing with EAA prior to 2005. So, I always tell people closer to 20 years.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
And how did you, before you became this radio phenom?
I don't know. Hey, Brother Donnie, it's like, it's something very simple. Like, you always, I think I'm more like an athlete when it comes to radio. You always say, okay, yeah, we've had these achievements, we met these goals, but I'm always striving to get better. I'm a student of the game. You know what I'm saying? I'm a student of broadcasting. I'm always, listening to myself and striving to make sure that my representation and my presentation of facts and information is on point. And of course, my connection with our callers, engaging people on air is just on point. So, all the dynamics, when we look at the greats, and we can probably go down the list, the number of Black voices that have come across the airwaves.
Well,
and I listened to them.
I ask you, who did you hear? Who do you remember hearing first? Who inspired you?
Hey, let me tell you, and I'm going to take you way back. C. Miles.
He the first one who hung up on me. And he hung up on me for no reason. At least in my mind, I was just posing a question. I didn't even get to say, hey, Morehouse brother, click him. Okay, when they talk about me hanging up on people, I had nothing on C. Miles. I hung up for a reason. He hung up for no reason.
I listened to C. Miles, and when he was on air, he was the talk, man. He was the guy. He was the talk, man. But C. Miles open, I think he had that. I think he had like an old school, like, you don't agree with me, boom. I'm just. There was no dissenting opinion about his show.
Right, what you hit me in the mouth for? I ain't saying nothing in the mouth.
And I mean, it's crazy because people love that, like they hate it, but they love it at the same time. They love when somebody gets hung up on. They love when somebody, when the host is yelling, the whole nine. And it's like, I mean, it's good radio, but we got to ask ourselves the question, considering how significant and heavy a lot of these issues are that we talk about on
Somebody would be waiting on C. Miles outside the station today. In Baltimore?
I don't know. I don't know if he could, and that's a great point. I don't know if we'd be able to handle the culture that it is right now, the political, social culture that we're in this moment right now. Like, if you don't give people a chance to share their dissenting views, either with you as a host or with what's going on in general, you're right. Somebody's gonna be like, look, man, we can't take all that, man. You hanging up on people, you calling people then outside of their name, you stupid, man, you crazy, bum. I mean, people
back then. This is a different day.
That's exactly.
And it's just 15 years.
And that just goes to show you, like C. Miles represented a lot of Black media, locally. You know what I'm saying? He was like that one of the local Black voices that we heard. But when you look at it now, you know, I've listened to Tavis. I've listened, of course, to Roland. I've listened to the Black Eagle himself. You know what I'm saying? On Joe Madison. Joe Madison comes out of that school too.
He's suave. He got more swag.
He got more swag with him, bro, right? And I listen to him, but I like what he has to say, but he comes out of that space too.
But he comes with facts, history, knowledge. Do you remember Jesse McDade Bay?
No.
He was at Morgan, and I want to say the early 90s, late 80s. But he was a professor at Morgan State before C. Miles came on the scene at WEAA. Jesse McDade, like McDade County. Well, no, that's not a county, Dade County. Jesse McDade Bay, B-E-Y, and full of history, full of facts, iconic. He and Mary Carter Smith, Kwaisi, of course, they created a WEAA that you have inherited today.
I think I've partly inherited. And I mean, I'm humbled by that, honestly. I'm really humbled by that.
Point. You got to run the point.
Yeah, I'm right. You know, we strive to run a point. And, you know, I talked to the Congressman Kwaisi Mfume. I've spoken to him on many occasions, and you know, even him, like the voices that what he brought to the game of broadcasting. You know, there was
he was a radical.
He was radical. And see, the thing about him was, and I think this is where we are on a lot of spaces. The thing about Kwaisi is that he brought experience. Like, he not only talked about it. I appreciate that, Alexis. You know, he not only talked about it, but he actually did that work. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go down here, I got a great respect for the congressman, because when you go down his resume and the spaces that he's been in and the conversations that he has been a part of and the decisions he made, it wasn't like, okay, I'm just on the radio, I'm just shooting off at the mouth, and then I go home and I chill out. Like, no, that's what you did. That became a part of you. And he grew up in a time frame, like, you know, Brother Donnie, where the consciousness of Black people were always at the forefront. You know, you couldn't just talk about it. And that's the space that I think that is important for us now, especially for Black media. We kind of have, there's an expectation of double responsibility, that we have to articulate and speak well. We know how we have to have our facts all in order, but then we must also bring the experience of working with people, being in the community, doing that. And so that's a double. We don't put that same expectation on white broadcasters. White broadcasters, they can just, you know, Rush Limbaugh, he just talked about, I mean, he did some stuff, but for us, we got to come with both of those, you know, badges of honor in order for our message to get across. Otherwise, you just going to just be talking.
You know, Kwaisi helped raise money to build WEAA.
He is, we consider him the founder. We consider him the founder. And so when I talk to him and share, you know, he listens to what we have to say on even today, he listens. And so, you know, it's a great honor. It's really a great honor, and it's a real, you know, it's a humbling experience. And so my thinking has always been listening to what all those brothers have done and all of those sisters have done for the station, and just added on to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a small link in the chain. You know, I'm just a small link in the chain, and then we move on. But I think, you know this now, you know this probably more than anybody, the importance of having Black media voices right now. And I'm saying in 2021 is absolutely critical. And it can't be a wavering Black voice. There has to be an unapologetic Black voice on media. And at the same time, progressive. You know what I'm saying? Because I think some
word progressive. When I hear you say it, you know, I can stomach it. But then I hear people not like you say it, and I don't trust them with regular words. So when they start throwing progressive, what's that mean? Do you treat people like human beings? What I want to know from the quote unquote progressives that don't look like me, that don't, because they don't say progressive in my neighborhood, no different than they did 40, 50 years ago. There's certain people who are progressive. They do forward thinking things. But then, in mainstream, I'm scared of that word. What does that mean? Are you, if it's white people saying, I want to know, do you treat people like humans or not? Because everybody, at first it was diversity. And now we got these new buzzwords, diversity and inclusion. Do you treat people right or not? That's all I want.
Right. My favorite buzzword, Brother Donnie, and I'm just like, what? Intersectionality. When they say, oh, this is the intersectionality of the things, I'm like, okay. I mean, I know what it means, but it's just like, I don't strive to get caught up on a lot of words, quote unquote, big words, just to sound smart. I think we need not to get to that place. I think we need to have conversations that people understand and they can relate to. But when I say progressive, I'm speaking of, are you taking in account the change in both culture and people's behaviors and social interactions? You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about for white people, it might be different. Progressive for them may be, for some white people may be, treating Black men and women like human beings. That's progressive. But I think for Black folks, it can mean that, okay, we recognize that Latino brothers and sisters and indigenous communities are part of the struggle. It can also mean that LGBTQ community is a part of the struggle, because we have family members and friends and family and neighbors who are part of that community. It's looking at whether, keeping in mind that we're not just all Democratic and all Republican, that in a lot of ways we kind of fall in the middle of those two political parties. So keeping all of those things in mind. And then also when it comes to the ideas of capitalism versus some other form of government or economic government, that we're not all in the same space. That some of us believe that, it's too much money at the top and very little money at the bottom. And so therefore there should be a sharing of resources, a redistribution of wealth. So what I mean by progressive is making sure that there is an acknowledgement, at least, of other people, of the interests, of the values and beliefs that are out there. There should be an acknowledgement. There should be some level of growth and maturity there.
I got to tell you, at 55, I guess I'm not progressive. I'm interested in one thing at this juncture.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that you and I have been fighting for all these years, and that's the condition of Black people.
I think that's where it starts. Yeah. And I think that's where there's fear about moving so fast, so quick, and so far away from that for a lot of people, that people think that we always talking about something beyond Black. But let's look at the reality. The reality is that it starts with Black people. If you restore, or if Black people are restored from the community vantage point, individual space, if Black people are restored, that sets the model and the blueprint for other people to be restored. I mean, it's just that simple.
Well, that's where I'm at, because like with, we have tomorrow a contractors college for minority business, women business, small business. And some of my friends in New York, they do not use the term minority business. They use Black business. But in the government, it's a whole category, minority business enterprise. That's where Black people get contracts.
Right.
But so many other terms get thrown in. And so that's why I say, just like my first book, Unapologetically Black. Now you got white women who claim to be MBEs, and they are often fronts for their husbands. So I just like to keep it simple.
No, and I think in those spaces, and look, I would agree with you right there, Brother Donnie. I think in those spaces, you need to explicitly say Black, explicitly say women only or women owned. You have to be explicit. I'm working on on an initiative right now, and we explicitly talk about the investment of Black and Brown communities, right? Black and Latino communities. And so in government, and then I'm so happy you brought this up, brother, because in government, they put the big umbrella over it and then say, okay. But we know that unfortunately, when the government puts a label on you, it's to hide what their real intent may be. And so, yes, they could say minority owned or they say minority operated, but it goes to white women. And it still disenfranchises Black women. It still disenfranchises other women in other communities. So we got to make sure that we, in certain spaces, yes, we do have to say Black. We shouldn't run away from that. We shouldn't run away from that.
I gotta say it in all spaces, and this is why everybody stands on Black people's backs in order to get their cause lifted up. The LGBTQ, the Latino, the minority in general, everybody's standing on the backs of Black people when we haven't been straight. So I'm from the school of thought, straighten me out first, and then we can get to those next conversations. That's where I'm at, because we've been put second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. No, I'm putting Black first, starting in my house, in my block, in my community, in the broader Sandtown, in East Baltimore. Black. This is a majority Black city. Black.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Here's the thing.
If they don't like it, too bad, too sad. Because when we need them, lately, let's just get to it. Yeah, there are a lot of people, and Black people are so quick to adopt somebody else's cause. Oh, Belgium got blown up. Let me change my profile picture and put save Belgium, save Paris, without knowing the history of King Leopold in the Congo. Because what they said about Belgians back then is they cut my hands off in the Congo. And as far as France, and the Eiffel Tower is cute, but France, that's the home of Napoleon Bonaparte, the one that Toussaint Louverture had to split his wig down in Haiti. And Haiti is still poor today because they still paying restitution to a European pimp that was taking their money back then. But they got their hind parts stomped. We are so quick to embrace everybody else's struggle except our own. I'm 55. I'm unapologetically Black, and everybody else can wait.
Well, and I think a couple of things on that. One is that's an excellent point. I think the reason that you see some of our people go into that place is because if you don't have a knowledge of yourself, then it's very easy for you to adopt somebody else's identity. And so if our people are ignorant, and I'm saying that in the most respectful sense, if they are ignorant of their history, of that history, of our relationship and our cause to other countries and other people, then yes, you're going to be in that space. And it's absolutely insane for us to take on somebody else's cause and you have no knowledge of your own interest in your own cause, your own purpose. So yes, I agree with you. I think though we have to figure out, because we are at a very critical point here in this country, that when we're dealing with the issues of white supremacy, when we're dealing with the outgrowth of systems based and rooted on white supremacy, we have to be very strategic about how to dismantle the system to a point where it does impact and it does provide benefit for Black people. And in some ways, we got to be strategic to build those alliances and those relationships, not with white people per se, but let's start with other people that are down in the ground with us. There are a number of Latino brothers and sisters, and they are part of our families and in other places around where we are, who feel the same way, who do not have a problem saying to Black people, I'm with you. I will never forget, Brother Donnie, last year when I saw a protest happening out in Los Angeles around the killing of George Floyd. There were over thousands of of Latinos protesting for George Floyd in Los Angeles. Thousands. I mean, this thing was huge. And the Latino community was in Hollywood with Blacks and Latinos, and they were protesting with George Floyd. To me, when I saw that, I was like, that's a sign of power. That's something that the traditionalists of white supremacy don't want us to see, and certainly don't want us to tap into, because they know that's powerful.
I can't bring myself to say that term, Farajii.
Huh?
I can't bring myself to say that term of supremacy, of white supremacy. It don't even sound right. It's institutional racism, but I never thought anybody was supreme to me. And even though some people are dumb enough to think that they're smarter than us, I won't even acknowledge that them supreme. Are you for real?
Well, I mean, I get why you say that. I trust and believe. I get it why you say it. It's institutional racism, but see, I think then we got to dive deeper into where it is. It's institutional racism based upon white people seeing themselves as being smarter and essentially better.
Right. So it's not really that they're supreme; it's their perception.
That's what it is. I mean, that's what it is, right? And that's what I'm saying. Right now, and you're right. It's a perception,
their perception,
right? But see, their perception is also comes from the experience of the transatlantic slave trade, where our people were enslaved and our people were broken down to the point where we lost who we were. And then we were made to believe that.
Half of them Europeans were indentured servants. 1 in 10 of them owned slaves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at them cats climbing the Capitol walls, they're not bosses.
No, those are
foot soldiers.
Right, they're foot soldiers.
They're in a cult and they're brainwashed. I mean, for somebody to want to fight for the right to own another human being, we're not dealing with a human being. These are no longer human terms. This is a Neanderthal. This is not a human being. Black, white, and you got Black people involved in slavery. You got Arabs involved in slavery.
Absolutely.
So it's not supreme. It's really
but it is supreme because even though we had our people, we had Africans, we had Arabs, what the Europeans did, how it was done, and what was the result of their initial actions in building this country showed their supremacy.
I would never acknowledge that. They stole, they lied, they committed genocide.
We agree on that. We agree on that. But they've created, but Brother Donnie, you can't deny, they've created a reality, a whole new world that has kept us in a state of subjection and has kept us in a place of less than human for hundreds of years. And not only did they do that, let's add to it, they made us love it. They made us embrace it. So we no longer abhor the treatment. We no longer even tolerate the treatment, quote unquote. We have embraced the treatment as the reality of our existence. We have embraced it. So you have some of our people who say, I am an American.
All of that's fine. But if they didn't get that verdict right the other night, this would be a different America today. This mother was getting burned down. And they knew it.
See, here's the question. Because see, my big thing, and this is my big take on this, Brother Donnie, and you know this because I know your history, because you have been bringing people together and organizing. behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and before in front of the mic and camera. But you know that none of that real sustainable, substantial change was going to happen unless we were organized. I'm a huge advocate of being an organized people. We cannot be we can't say we're going to make change and then we got one person pop up here, one person there, and then, no, we have to be organized. And even if the verdict came down to not guilty, yeah, brothers and sisters would have ran the streets.
White people too.
White people would have as well, right? There was a USA Today Ipsos poll that was just taken hours after the verdict was read. Check this out. Check this out. It said in that poll, Brother Donnie, that majority of Americans are in favor of the judgment, of the verdict. 61% said that they would accept the verdict as it is, but they would no longer join a march or a protest. 61%, meaning this to me, when I read that, and folks, you can check it out online, it's right on USA Today, meaning that people would have accepted that verdict and don't see like the need to push the needle further along to now, because look, we in a situation where we had the verdict, what was that, on Tuesday? On Tuesday or Wednesday? It came out on Tuesday. Literally the next day, we talking about Ma'Khia Bryant, we talking about Dante Wright. I saw we're talking about some black boys that were harassed by officers in Pimboy, New Jersey. I mean, literally within 12 hours. So we went from a people of being high and hope, oh, things are going to change, this is going to be better, to now we are back down to hoping again that the system will, quote unquote, work for us.
This is a war, Farajii. It's been a war since our first interaction with foreigners on these shores.
Yeah.
And as far as USA Today, I'd be more interested in what you wrote. I'd be more interested in what Brother Richard writes in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the mainstream will never tell our story. USA Today don't speak for me. I doubt if they take a poll in my neighborhood. They represent white people and the black people.
I mean, look,
let me suggest to you, I say to you that a lot of us think the fight is over. It's a war. It's been a war. It never stopped being a war. And more so inmates, they're really prisoners of war. It's a war. We can sugarcoat it. It's a war. Anytime we have to pray extra hard for our sons to come back through the doors out of concern or fear that they will be accosted by white cops, to hear about this young lady in Columbus, Ohio, Miss Bryant, 16 years old. This is a war. Freddie Gray, all of the things of Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner. It's a war. It never stopped being a war. And those police, there are white racist police across the country who should not be cops. They get to exploit their terrorist activities by being a police. But what we know is that without that gun, without that bulletproof vest, they chumps. They cowards. They got their lunch money took when they went to school. They got bullied, and this is their get back. And some black ones too.
Right. It's a war. Well, and you're right. And here's the thing about the war. You know, according to Sun Tzu in Art of War, one of the first rules of warfare is know your enemy.
We know them.
We don't know the depths of the satanic mind of the men and women who try to keep us in control. We don't know how deep, how far. No. If we really knew, Brother Donnie, we wouldn't still be having as much hope and belief in the system that we do today.
I don't. I see it as a war. Dave Chappelle.
No, but you're again, you're speaking from that individual space. You're speaking on yourself. But look, we're just a few weeks away from the 4th of July, right? Right? All that we've gone through in this country, you're still going to see some black person waving the American flag. And that's fine. That's where you want to be. And this is not
black, green, or red, white, and blue.
You asking me?
Yeah. Or the red, white, and blue. Old Glory.
Old Glory. They still gonna
are they going to sing the national anthem too?
Man, they probably going to have the USA flag on their cups and on their styrofoam plates when they do the cookout on the 4th of July.
I look at that two ways. We are more American than anybody. A lot of us were here when the European arrived. And we let ourselves get written out of history because we refuse to acknowledge our indigenous roots. The black man was the first on every continent.
Yeah.
America's history books will never acknowledge us. And that's why you got to get a copy of my new book that's coming out, I Am Black Wall Street, which starts down there in Florida with them black Indians busting caps and Andrew Jackson and all of the other colonialists who wanted to send us out west, wanted us to be removed from the land. And we got to stop letting other people, including Native Americans who don't look like us, try to tell us how long we've been here. We are the first on every continent. Do you know that there are Egyptian archives found in Nevada?
Didn't know that.
There are 450 mound pyramids across the United States. They will tell us that the first blacks that came to America were slaves, 1619, Jamestown, Virginia. Well, they got to go back a little bit longer and see Esteban, the explorer, who explored from Florida, the Gulf Coast, all the way around to Mexico. Or we got to just know about Jean du Sablé that founded Chicago. We've been here. We got to start knowing our story and stop letting this moron who don't even know his own story try to tell us our story.
Well, you know what? It's and it's interesting, dear brother, because when you're talking about that history, there has to be I would say a very strategic effort to get our people to look back into their history right now, because and this is just across the board. Parents, school systems, scholars and educators, everything is being watered down. Things are getting watered down. Things are getting diminished. And so it's important that like individuals like yourself and many others who are constantly pushing people to like, look, take a deeper dive into your history. But it's not a sexy look right now. It's not sexy because there's so much history to cover about Black people in this country and around the globe that many of us don't want to take the extra time. And part of it is because of the culture that we live in, which has made it uncool to have an attention span beyond 5 minutes. You know what I mean? To sit down and read a book, to sit down and do the research, to sit down to listen to a lecture about history. So we are, when you're talking about that war, the war is really on so many different fronts, Brother Donnie, because it's a war on our thinking. It's a war on our narrative of our story, our history. It's a war on our desires. It's a war on our, our attention. There are so many things coming at us. And so that puts so much pressure on our minds that at some point, our people just check out. Man, I'm gonna just go to the club. Man. I'm going to the club. I can't deal with all this, man. Y'all deal with that. And we check out.
We check out. This is an easy one. Do you ever ask yourself what was going on just before Columbus came west? It's right there in front of our eyes. What's the cat Tariq? Tariq Nasheed,
Mm-hmm.
just before slavery started, a Columbus come across the water. He got lost down in the Caribbean in 1492.
Mm-hmm.
Just before that, the Moors had dominated Europe for 700 years, starting in Spain, Portugal.
Right.
If you Google coat of arms, coat, like you put a coat on, coat of arms, and Europe, you will see the Moors. You know those fancy jackets they got the crest on, like Tiger Woods?
Yes, sir.
That's ours. We started the crest. Every European nation had African Moorish crests.
Right.
Germany, Scotland, England. We taught these cats for 700 years how to wash, how to throw their trash away, sewage systems, how to dress. You know damn well we brought fashion to Europe. You know it.
Not that we just bring fashion.
Everything.
We not just brought fashion, we brought the fabrics. We brought the fabrics. But we taught them this, we taught the skill of making clothes. You know what I'm saying?
And you know that was called the Dark Ages.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But see, that's what I'm saying. So the thing is, though, Brother Donnie, see, that type of rich history goes untold because of where we are right now in modern day America in 2021. And so for us, for those who have an understanding of history, a knowledge of history, and who are conscious, for us, we have a responsibility to essentially bring that level of new thought and civilization to those who don't know. That's our responsibility in 2021. We can't hold it back. And we can't sit on the side and be like, look at our people, they crazy. We got knowledge, they don't got knowledge, and therefore we criticize them for not knowing what we know. We will be found in the wrong because we wasn't willing to share, or we trying to pay, we try to give people knowledge by, you got to pay me all this money in order for me to impart the little bit of knowledge that I know, the little bit of history that I know. No, our people, the scriptures say it very quickly. It says our people suffer for what? Lack of knowledge. And so those of us who have knowledge, it is our duty to impart the knowledge to others who may not have that knowledge in any way that we can. And then I tell people all the time, you don't have to go out into the streets and protest. You don't have to do that. But you can create a revolution in your own household by doing some different things, reading to your children from certain books, certain authors, certain Black authors. You know what I'm saying, brother? You are a big reader. Regardless of what people say, they say one thing, Brother Donnie, we read. You read, you write. Two of the most powerful skills that the human mind can ever do. And you comprehend. So we can read to our children. We can take them to places, to museums. I mean, there's just so many things. We can create a whole different culture and a whole different vibe. Everybody's one of the, no, it's a vibe. No, it's a vibe to know yourself. It's a vibe to be able to, provide your children with knowledge and information and wisdom that they can stand on. So when they are confronted by the police, whether it's confronted by Black people or by white people, they can be able to handle themselves in such a way that they don't lose themselves. They don't have to feel like they got to be somebody else. They know who they are and they stand on who they are.
A lot of us, I'm at a point where I'm not concerned with what others think.
I think that comes with getting older, though, right?
And wisdom too. Not all older people are wise.
No, facts.
We're often, going back to elementary school, concerned about what others think. Right. But when you think of those trailblazers, one hero in my story was John Horse. He was a Black Seminole down in Florida. Florida was not an original colony. Right. Florida was where Black people went to escape. They never told us this. And so when Trayvon Martin happened, I was hating Florida for a long time. But as time went by, I peeled back the layers to look at Florida. Did you know there were black pirates in Florida?
I did hear about that. Yes, sir. Yes,
There
sir.
were black pirates all up and down the East Coast. They was knocking off slave ships, among other ships, and those Spanish ships. I don't want to follow the crowd. My father taught me, use your head for something other than a hat rack. And what I find with us a lot of times is we want to do what's popular. That's why most of us are Democrats. When they ask me my political affiliation, I'm a black man in America, and I'm voting for who best supports my interests. And if something is crazy about that, then I'll just have to take that mantra, because it goes back to what our teachers taught us back in elementary school. And I'm thinking about Dorothy Williams, Miss Nottingham, Francis Parks, Kermit Williams, Catherine B. Orange. They taught us critical thinking, to think for yourself. Because if you don't think for you, then you allow someone else. And let me also say, we are really blessed in this city. I see a lot of the work that the churches have done. But who I get excited, besides PM Smith, I get really excited when I see the brothers from Mosque number 6 come through Pennsylvania Avenue. When I see them over east, over Monument Street.
Right.
Park Heights. That excites me. That really excites me. And you should see, well, not that you don't know, but the way the people look at it. And it's like, oh, wow, there's our army. Our army has finally come, finally we can, well, that's our army. Like the cavalry used to come through.
Right.
Because everybody get a checkup from the neck up, to use Brother Bay's words. And so I'm so proud of that mosque. Mosque number 6, Andrew Knox, of course, Minister Carlos. We so need them because they are fearless. They could fix this city right now on a crime tip. Years ago, they called the nation down to Murphy Homes.
I remember that. My pops used to work down there. So yes, sir. Yep. NOI security.
And it worked.
Right.
And
it worked.
Killed. Nobody got killed.
It worked. And you and I know, Brother Donnie, that formula worked tremendously. But again, those in those who are the enemies of our rise in the federal government didn't like that.
Remember Farajii wanted to give Farrakhan $10 million? They wouldn't let him take it.
$5 million. Yep.
Wouldn't let him take it. And so that also teaches me. So Dave Chappelle, Mos Def, Stevie Wonder, going back to W.E.B. Du Bois. We need to be talking more about dual citizenship in an African nation, land in Africa. When I went to Tanzania, there were so many trees, I could see me having a lumber company. We got to get out this rat race. We got to get a passport. That's the best advice I could give anybody listening to this show. For them to get a passport, for their children to have a passport, and to go and see the world. It's bigger than, like David Miller says, a trip to Mondam and a chicken box and a jumbo half and half.
Well, you know what, and that's and he's right about that. And I think, and I agree with you on everything you just said, because you and I know that we have both gained personally from being exposed to different realities, different worlds outside of Baltimore City. But our people don't always have the resources and the means. And so it's important that we do, and I'm saying some. I will say, let me add a little sum in there for you, Brother Donnie.
We got books. We got books. We got libraries.
I was going to say that. No, that I was literally going to say that. But it's important that we make sure that our people have access to various resources like books and libraries. Right. You know what I'm saying?
We on Instagram all day.
I know that. And see, check this out. When you on Instagram, when you on Facebook, the folks that have created those platforms, there's a great Netflix documentary on, it's called The Social Dilemma. And they talk to the people who created Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms. And they talked about the science behind these platforms to be able to tap into the natural ability to get you and I so hooked on these platforms that we have to check it. We always got to be engaged, quote unquote. We always got to be on it, diverting our attention from other places and other things. So there's a science behind that. Once you become aware of that it's not, quote, natural for you to be literally sleeping with your phone, like in the bed, like sisters be sleeping with their phone like it's a man. Dudes are sleeping with their phones like, yo, this is my bae right here. Like, that is a problem. And I have to, when I get home, I'm tossing this. I'm putting this to the side. I'm putting this away because why? You got to get disconnected from this and start getting into a book. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to jump into a different world, a different space. So part of the big thing is, brothers, like you said, it's access. And here's the big thing. So when we talk about community development in the city of Baltimore, what are some of the key things that every single community must have in order to thrive? School, a supermarket, right? And a library, right? And then you must have access within walking distance of the services, right? And so when we know that, because a lot of folks I'm not gonna say a lot. I don't think a lot of people understand.
The Baltimore City Public School Board, they don't seem to know it because you just said it. We need schools, we need supermarkets.
Right.
Most of the people on that Baltimore City School Board are Black.
Yeah. 8 out of 9.
But they close schools in Black neighborhoods. You close a school, you kill a community.
So here's the thing. And so here's the thing, Brother Donnie, and we talked about this. If those decisions are being made, one, we have to figure out, or we have to know who's making those decisions. Because it's not just Dr. Santelises, for example, here in Baltimore. It's not just her. She is accountable to a board of individuals.
She's also a part of a lineage.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Andre Salonzo.
And so we have to know that history. Then to add to that, brother, not only should we know about these things, but what got them, like what were the factors that led to that decision? Why would they close a school in West Baltimore and ship, say, 2,000 or 3,000 students, force them to go to a school in another part of the city where they got to jump on a bus or two?
They don't live here, and their paycheck is fat enough for them to live in Harford County and not give a rat's about them one way or the other. So
the point is, we have to figure it out. We have to find out. We have to determine that. Because see, look, because we could see, because I've heard it too on the other side. Some of these schools were underperforming. You know what I'm saying? Some of these schools were underperforming. For example,
I came through those underperforming schools.
Hey, let me tell you something. So did I. So did I.
What's different is the education and who's in charge of the education. Andres Alonso got rid of 75% of the principals, and that was Big Mama. That was Miss Parker. That was Miss Nottingham. He got rid of 75% of the principals at one time. That was an assassination.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something. When you start getting ready, see, because that became a result. There's a cause and effect.
And he didn't have children, right? Andres Alonso didn't have children.
I don't think he has children.
I don't know that he liked girls.
I can't speak on that. All I know is I came through a girl
make a baby. He had no baby. We got to stop letting the enemy. Didn't Malcolm say it? Stop letting the enemy train our children.
Well, here's the thing. I came up under Dr. Alice Penderhughes. I came up under, yes, the same Dr. Alice Pender Hughes that the school board building is named after. I literally came up under her 25 years as the school superintendent, right? Older Black woman, always was. So we came up under a different situation. But my point is that we have to know how these things are done. Like, we have to know not all of the inner workings, but you should know at least who the CEO is, who the school board is, how do they make certain decisions, why do they make certain decisions? And then at the same time, at the end of the day, you'll be able to make a judgment or make an assessment for yourself whether that decision was favorable or not favorable. Was it beneficial for that community? Was there any conversation about options? If you close one school here, what is the option for those students or for that community? I mean, you got to press it. Now, the thing also about it is, here's the thing. You ready for this, Brother Donnie? It's easy. And this is our culture in Baltimore City. We love to take down leadership in one, either directly or indirectly. We love it. It's a part of our culture. Somebody don't do something right by us in the matter of 6 months to a year, cut them, just get rid of them. But do we ask, what about those who were involved in that situation? For example, what I mean by that, if you have a student like we saw with the student from Augustus Fell Savage, he's missing over 200 plus days in school, right? You got to ask yourself, sister, to the mom, well, what happened, sis? What happened? Because just going along with what you said earlier, Brother Donnie, if we are at this new place where all of this systemic racism, institutional racism should not be a determining factor for us, that we are at a place where we can make our own decisions, we can chart our own path, how come we can't seem to take control of our communities and our children? And I'm not throwing shade on the sister at all. I'm just simply asking, what happened from her as a parent that she didn't know? What happened?
I want to know, why didn't somebody snag her and say, don't go on television? Don't show
don't, because
she the first person that you got to look at. Where you been?
And there it is.
Don't go on TV.
I wouldn't go on TV, sis, because now your parental guidance is going to be questioned, right? And so
get locked up.
But so here's the thing: like, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to change our condition?
But let's remember, Fox was the big exploiter in all of this.
I got you. But we know that.
A lot of us don't.
No.
I see black people on Fox.
Let me tell you something.
Fox got their picks. Did you see the new lineup of picks? It's like, bro, man. Wait. But here's the thing, though. We know that when there are issues with the system on a broad scale, on a massive level, Black folks unfortunately become the scapegoat for the failure. We know that. And so what I'm saying is, it's okay, yes, there's some systemic things that happen, but we can't move away from the fact, the absolute point, that there was a breakdown within the home. First,
there's a breakdown in the community that allowed that situation. How many young people, when school was opening in full session right before COVID, how many young people did you see on the streets of Baltimore, on the corners washing windows? How many of us have accepted that, tolerated it, and then embraced that as being the quote unquote, the way things are, right? And so if we're talking about waging that war, not only should we know about the enemy that we're going against, but we need to look at the weaknesses that will put us in a place of vulnerability that the enemy can exploit. And if we don't know those places, like, we're not strong right now as a people in terms of our relationship to our children, in terms of our our understanding of things. So we have to look at our deeper inside ourselves and say, look, man, we need to get strong on this thing here. Like we can't, we're talking about, you and I know it. We both gained and benefited from all types of schools of thought, whether you're talking about from the streets, you're talking about in the classrooms, you're talking about your aunts and uncles and family members, or just talking about our personal experiences. And we do ourselves, this is just me talking, I think we do ourselves a huge disservice where we put our thing on, we impose our view of the school on our children to the point that it diminishes their desire to want to even go to school. We hate on the school so much in front of our children, and we don't think they're thinking or they're listening to us or they're picking up on it. But guess what? They don't want to go. And we kill the desire. It's natural for a child to want to learn. That's the very nature in which they're born into. They become explorers and learners. They want to touch and play and all of those things. That's natural. How do you get to be at 10, 12, 14, or 16 years old and you talking about, I'm dropping out of school, man. I ain't want this stuff, man.
I'll tell you how. Because daddy is not in the picture.
But daddy is not the first teacher.
He's not.
Mother is
Mama
the first teacher.
is the first teacher, but daddy's supposed to be right there beside her.
And look, look, I'm a married man with two children. I'm a married man with two children. So I know the benefit of that. I see it. I see it. But I know everybody.
Mass incarceration.
You got it.
Drugs.
I got it.
Graveyard.
But check this out. And let me ask you.
It's a war.
I don't know if your father was in the picture. I was blessed to have my father in the picture. My father was in the picture.
My daddy was Undertaker.
There it is.
Deeper and deeper, baby. Deeper and deeper. Deeper and deeper. We make you look good in purple. His name was Doc Glover. He passed in 03. But he made education.
Be pleased with him.
And look, we got 3 minutes. I'll just say this. You get the last two.
Yeah, no.
I used to wonder as a kid, how come my teachers knew my father by name? Now I know. Because he was one of the only ones to come to the school.
Let me tell you something.
And my son's school, they know me by name.
And there it is. There it is. So what just happened there? What you did was your father set an example, right? You gained from that. My father set an example. Even though my father wasn't always able to come to the schools, I knew it was important. My mom, my grandmother, may God be pleased with her. My grandmother, Mayetta Brown, she was the one that came to the schools while my parents were working. She took care of us. And so when I grew up, she had
them little peppermints wrapped up in her pocket.
Oh, man, my grandmother, look, Brother Donnie, my grandmother she passed away when she was 91 years old. She was less than 100 pounds. She was probably like 90 something pounds. But she had a fire in her.
She had little things in a pocketbook in the paper.
She always had something. But the thing was, a decision was made for you, by you, and by your father that you were going to break that cycle. I'm the same way. Look. I'm the same way at my son's school. Same way. I'm Mr. Muhammad. Matter of fact, I did something and I never thought I would do it. I introduced my son to some police officers, some black police officers, and said, son, I said, my name is Mr. Muhammad. This is my son, Nigel. What's your name, officer? And now his view of policing, of being police, is different. Same thing with his teachers. I'm his father. You want to call somebody, you call me.
That's the difference. That's what we don't have enough of. But it's been a war from day one. And you know what?
I get it.
War,
but here's what I'm saying.
They kill the brain.
I get it. But guess what? We have shown time and time again as we wrap up that we can overcome anything we want in spite of the great adversities that have been thrown against us, because God put that in us. He put that in us as Black people, as Black men and women. So yes, there's been a whole lot of stuff thrown up against us, but we got to tap into that God spirit where we can just overcome any adversity. How you going to come from chattel slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, beaten down in the street, and you can't show up at your son's PTA meeting? How is that? How you can do that? How you can go from being from the drug era and going through all of that stuff, but you can't have a conversation with your son's teacher, your daughter's teacher?
Because we had
no more
happy hour.
excuses.
We had happy hour out
hey man, look, no health day parties and all that. This is too serious. Our people are in such a serious and grave condition, and our children are at a crisis. We need to be there in some way, shape, or form. In some way, shape, or form. Fight for your children. I tell Black men all the time, Brother Donnie, as I close, fight for your children, man. Because that's your legacy. Well, I ain't want to have her. She want. I get that, bro. I get that. But they're here now.
And they're
here now. They ain't asked to be here.
It's our job. Farajii, Mama, we love and respect you.
Hey, man, you know I love and respect you, Brother Donnie. Thank you.
Power to the people.
Power to the people, brother.